Now, on Emeritus Newsbrief, I'm Lynn Houston. President Obama, in his weekend address, still insisting on a public option in health care reform. But Republicans in the Sunday talk shows insist they can't go with a public option.
The co-op plan that we have come up with, if it's run like Midwest co-ops that we've known for 150 years, would be consumer-oriented. The benefits of it would go to the consumer. It would be regulated just like other insurance companies. It would still remain choices. If you have a public option and you eventually get to only one option, then there's no choices. And choice of different plans is what we want to preserve for America.
It is very clear that in the United States Senate, the public option does not have the votes. If we have to get to 60 votes, you cannot get there with public option. That's why I was asked to come up with an alternative, and the alternative I came up with was this cooperative approach that, as Senator Grassley correctly describes, is not government-run or government-controlled. It's controlled by its membership. But it does provide not-for-profit competition to insurance companies. So it has appeal on both sides. It's the only proposal that has bipartisan support, and if we're going to get 60 votes, we're going to need bipartisan support.
But we're going to hit a wall very soon. In 7 or 8 years, Medicare will go broke, and that will leave millions of senior citizens in trouble. On the private insurance sector, it's the same thing. Costs have gone up. They've doubled in the last 7 years, and if that continues, and it's likely to if we do nothing in the next 7 years, there will be millions of Americans whose employers will tell them, you no longer have insurance, we can't afford it, or your coverage is much less. You're going to get less and have to pay more through deductibles. So we have to do something. And the private insurance industry is highly concentrated. 94% of all markets are highly concentrated, according to the Justice Department. In most states, only 2 insurance companies, 40 of the 50 states, 2 insurance companies dominate. What is the way to bring costs down? The good old-fashioned way is to bring competition. And the public option we've proposed is not one of these big government control things. The government sets it up. It has a different model. It doesn't have to make a profit or merchandise as much, so its costs are probably 20% lower. But then on a level playing field, it competes with private insurance. And one thing I want to underscore, David, it is not a mandate, it's an option. If you like your present insurance, whether you're an employer or an individual, you keep it, and it doesn't change. If you don't like it, you have an option of the public option, which will help bring costs down. And so it is indeed essential to getting the costs down, which is our #1 problem.
You have worked a lot with Senator Kennedy on immigration and other matters. How much of a difference has it made that he hasn't been part of this debate?
Huge difference. No person in that institution is indispensable. But Ted Kennedy comes as close to being indispensable as any individual I've ever known in the Senate, because he had a unique way of sitting down with the parties at a table and making the right concessions, which really are the essence of successful negotiations. So it's huge that he's absent, not only because of my personal affection for him, but because I think that healthcare reform might be in a very different place today.
Catch up with the latest on health reform from the Emeritus News homepage and regular features on the Emeritus News channel on livestream.com. The Mortgage Bankers Association pointing to continuing long-term unemployment for the rise in foreclosures. The group's latest survey, that for the second quarter of this year, shows a sign that mortgage performance is once again being driven by unemployment. Prime fixed-rate loans now account for 1 in 3 foreclosure starts. A year ago, they accounted for 1 in 5. More on the Emeritus News consumer page. The latest notable job discrimination cases involve 2 major employers. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has sued AT&T over its refusal to hire older workers who were either laid off or accepted compensation to leave. And Lowe's Home Improvement Stores accepted a $1.7 million settlement in a case brought by the EEOC on behalf of 3 former workers, 2 male and 1 female, who had claimed sexual harassment and a hostile work environment. More on the Emeritus News employment page. The largest teachers union, the National Education Association, has come out against President Obama's Race to the Top education initiative that provides more than $4 billion to schools for competitive grants. The union says it provides too much for charter schools and not enough for at-risk students in schools that need better funding and personnel. Also on the Emeritus News homepage, an update on efforts in Congress to improve airline passenger rights. The airline industry claims solutions cannot be legislated. The Monday 8 p.m. ending for the Cash for Clunkers program. Some dealers stopped participating last week because of the backlog of applications, but the program has moved at least 200,000 more vehicles than would have otherwise been sold. 4 more banks failed over the weekend, including one in Austin, Texas, that cost the FDIC insurance fund more than $3 billion. The FDIC insurance fund now has less than $10 billion left. The latest on the biggest issues and public policy at emeritusnews.com. And 24 hours, 7 days a week on the Emeritus News channel at livestream.com. That's an Emeritus News Brief. I'm Lynn Houston.